Hi, everyone. So, if you're just watching right now, we will get started right at 7 o'clock. I've got everything set up on YouTube. So, we're streaming both on YouTube as well as on StarCam. If you're watching on YouTube, StarCam gives you the opportunity to come in and upload questions directly. So, I've got everything all set up, and we'll get started in about 2 minutes. Good. Okay, so I can see that there's a few of you in here. We're going to get started in 1 minute, and I can see a couple of questions, and I'm excited. We actually have a special guest tonight, so I'm just going to send him the link to come in, and then we'll get started. So just do this. All right, so I've just sent a link to Bill Burbage, and he should be popping in any minute now. Bill's a member in the group, and I've got some media set up for him, but it looks like Carlene has a question. So while we wait for Bill to pop in, let's watch
Sure.
this question.
Do you ever have to strengthen your starter at some point? And what size loaf pans for sandwich bread do you use?
We're all paying attention right now, but there are a lot of American voters who
Those are great questions. Okay, so in regards to sandwich loaves, that's a pretty easy one. I use 8x4. I actually did a post on Facebook just yesterday or the day before where I showed two sandwich loaves. One is like nice and high, and then one is quite low. And if you looked at the two loaves, you might think that one didn't rise or didn't spring, but it's not actually that. It's that I used a 9x5 bread pan for that bread, for that sandwich bread. And so I always say when it comes to sourdough, use the smallest pan possible, whether it's in your Dutch oven, use a nice small Dutch oven, 4 to 5 quarts max. Use a small bread pan. So mine are 8x4. And what that does is it pushes the bread upwards, right? So when you put the sandwich bread into your loaf pan for its second rise, it'll actually rise up and out of the pan. And then once you bake it, it'll give it that higher rise. In regards to strengthening your starter, sometimes you might have to if it's been a little bit neglected or if you haven't used it in a while, or alternatively, if you're using your starter a lot, then sometimes it can get a little lazy. And there's a bunch of ways to strengthen your starter. I always just say change something, change anything, right? So if your starter is starting to be a little bit sluggish, a little bit lazy, then there's a few things that you could do. You could try using a sturdier flour. So if you're regularly feeding your starter with all-purpose flour or bread flour, which is normally just fine to keep a starter going, then you could try giving it a little shot of whole wheat or spelt or rye flour. Another thing you can do is something called peak to peak feedings for a day or two. So feed it, wait for it to peak, discard it, feed it again, wait for it to peak, feed it, discard it. 2 or 3 times is usually enough for that. Twice a day feedings every 12 hours for 2 days will strengthen it. Another thing is to give it a very flour heavy feed. So say you're doing a 50-gram 1-to-1-to-1 ratio. So 50 grams of starter, 50 grams of flour, 50 grams of, oh, here we go. We've got
You
Bill.
see me
Hi,
and hear me?
Bill. I can hear you. Yeah, can you hear me okay? Looks like he's a little froze, but let's see what happens here. So, well, oh, hi, Bill. There we go. Looks all right. I wonder if you have to turn your Wi-Fi off. So while we wait, so Bill is a member in our Sourdough for Beginners group. Hi. You look okay now. It's kind of a little bit freezy, a little bit almost like your internet connection's a little stuck. So
Mine?
Bill, yeah, I can hear you. So while we try and get that to work out, I'm just going to play something so that you guys can see what Bill does in the group. So let's just put this up. So this is a post that Bill made, and I just sort of filmed it. And it's a great post because Bill makes these beautiful loaves. Look how pretty they are, right? They're stunning. His scoring is beautiful. His white flour stays on. You know, it's just he just does a really good job with this sourdough. But not only does he do this beautiful bread, he actually comes into the group and makes these amazing posts that explain to people what he's doing. So I wanted to get Bill on tonight to do a co-host with me where we can ask him some questions and he can tell us a little bit about his process. I know that he bakes both at home and in a restaurant. So if you're in here and you're thinking about maybe becoming a cottage baker or starting a small business, Bill could probably answer questions about that. If you've got questions about scoring, these would be great questions. So for those of you watching, upload questions, not just to me, but to Bill as we go, if we can get Bill to work out okay. He's a little bit frozen on my end. It doesn't seem to be working super great, but I hope that's not me. I will check with Rick in just a second. Let's see if that's a little bit better. So hang on a second here. So, hi, Bill. Can you see me
Hi.
okay? Let's.
Yeah.
Hi. Okay, good. All right.
I lost
So,
you.
oh, okay. Well, hang on one sec. It should be a little bit better. You seem a little frozen on your end. Let's see what Rick's saying.
Are all those loaves generally for sale, or do you eat them at home, or what do you do with them normally? And is it like a decent business, or is it a side hobby, or is it like, just wondering, tell us more about how your baking journey.
Cool. So that question is for Bill for sure. But Rick, can you just let us know if you're seeing both Bill and I okay? Okay, so go ahead, Bill. See if you can answer that one.
You back?
Yep, I gotcha. Did you see that question from Rick come in? He's frozen, hey? It's Wi-Fi. Okay. Okay. All right, let's see if we can get this sorted out. So, Bill, I was just looking on Rick's end, and it looks like your internet is going pixelized. I don't know if you can switch from Wi-Fi to data or something, but we'll see if we can get that to work. So let's see what we've got here. Oh, here we go. All right, well, I wanted to tell you guys about Bill. So here's what happened with Bill. He did this amazing post where people were always asking him, "How do you make your bread look like that? Right? How do you make it look so beautiful?" And it's so it does it still look okay? Am I still on? Oh, okay. Well, we'll have to let it go, I guess. Or can I fix it? Sorry, guys, technical difficulties here. Bear with us. We're just going to try and get it sorted out. Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we were thinking of having a guest speaker on tonight, and it didn't go as well as we wanted to. So, for those of you who are here, let's just do our regular Q&A. So make sure you upload those questions. Now I know I don't really have to check for YouTube comments. Someone said, so my friend, someone said, good afternoon, Dawn. Dawn said, so my friend got to watch me feed my starter this morning. She found it interesting. Um, waiting for.
Am I back?
Oh, here we go. Let's see. Okay, cool. So Dawn says, so my friend got to watch me feed my starter this morning. She found it interesting. I did a float jet test just to do it. Two of the starters sank. They were day 5. The day 3 starter, however, floated. So we're not big on the float test. We don't think it's super reliable. The reality is that a starter that floats, it can just be affected by how much air happens to be in that starter at that moment in time. So if you happen to stir it before you tried to get it to float, that would have an effect on it. I can see Bill trying to come in. So Whimsical Dot Designs is saying, hi, it's Elizabeth. And she said, you're there. He's gone. Hi, Bill. I see you kind of, but we're
Hi.
freezing a little bit. Hi. Let's see if you can say something here. So you are clear in the video and I can hear you well. That's so great, Lila. That's good. Let's see if we get anything good from Bill. So we've been getting some starter questions, but if you can, I would love it if you told us a little bit about what you're doing for sourdough and what you're making and how you're doing it. Um, all right. Named my starter Dough Girl. Oh my gosh, there's so many great starter names out there. Bill, I'm not sure what's happening. It's not coming in super good. Like we can see you kind of, but it keeps pixelizing and we're not getting any sound at all. We get like the odd, like momentarily high, but then nothing else. It's all just pixelized. So maybe we'll get you to drop off for tonight and see if we can get it figured out for next time. So
Okay.
TS Chili says, I love your loaf bread recipe and I'd like to try some heartier flours. Do you have a good ratio to use? Another question, what does 100% hydration mean? So those are two really good questions. Usually if you're just starting to use sturdier flours, just start small and work your way up until you get comfortable with it. Sturdy flours like whole wheat, spelt, rye, what they do is they tend to absorb more water and they also tend to proof much faster. So if you make a big change, if you take a recipe that you're used to using and make a big change and go 100% whole wheat, then you can often see some issues occur in that regard. And then another question, what does 100% hydration mean? So 100% hydration is equal amounts flour and water. I don't necessarily recommend that you need to do it. I wish we could get Bill's sound going because he's actually a proponent of a fairly low hydration. He does his bread at 69.4%. But Bill, for whatever reason, we're not getting any good sound from you. We're seeing you, but it looks like the internet connection is not not doing super good for you there.
No, I have a pretty solid connection here too.
Oh yeah, that we're hearing you there now. That's a little better.
Yeah, it's kind of in and out. I got full bars. I got solid connection here.
Yeah, we're hearing you good now. Okay, well, we had a question from Rick for you earlier that was asking, are you selling your bread? Is it a good side hustle? Anything you can tell us about what it's like to, I know that you're working in a restaurant, but if you could tell us about sort of what your process is and what you're doing with all this bread you're making.
I am selling it. I'm in the store right now. So I'm in town. It's typically like $12 a regular loaf and $15 for cheese bread and stuff. And it's a build. I gotta build this thing as a business, but it's going.
Good. How many
So
loaves are you selling per week approximately?
it's got to be in the neighborhood of like 100, I would say. There's also a lot of focaccia too.
Oh, wow. Wow. So that's not
Yeah,
bad. I mean, 12 to 15 bucks a loaf, 100 a week. I mean,
yeah,
that's a good living.
yeah,
And by the way, for those of you watching in the States, $12 Canadian converts to what? About $9 US?
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, when we watch the US people in the group talking, we know that in the US they're selling for between $8 and $10 US. So Bill and I are
Yeah,
talking in Canadian terms. Bill's also here in Ontario.
yeah.
So Bill, what do you think about that question about what does 100% hydration mean? What do you say to people about hydration all the time?
Well, I'm fine with my hydration at 69.4 so percent. So I just keep it there. I've tried higher hydration stuff, but like I like to experiment around a lot. So I did try it. Mixed results, I guess. I pretty much stick
Yeah.
to what's working for me.
Yeah, right. So 69.4. So we have two recipes. We have the beginner bread recipe, which is 68% hydration with a fairly low starter amount, 680 grams of water and 120 grams of starter to 1,000 grams of flour. And then we have our level two hydration, which is 700 grams of water to 1,000 grams of flour, but we increase the starter up to 200 grams, so 20%. And we're finding that at the 70-20, you can get just a fantastic loaf, great spring, nice and moist inside, good and crispy on the outside. It's hard to see any much reason to go much higher than a 70% hydration. Um, when you can get those results. I do know that if you want really good baguettes, you need that 100% hydration, but let's see what we've got here. So we've got another thing. So I've baked cinnamon rolls and bagels since last week. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear. It's good to hear that they're going good. So is white whole wheat considered a strong whole wheat? It's Carol in San Diego. Hi, Carol. Um, do we have white whole wheat here, Bill? Have you seen anything like that?
I haven't. No, I
So
haven't
I
really
don't
looked
think
for it, but I haven't noticed it. I maybe in the bulk barn or something like that.
possibly, right? I've also find it extremely difficult to find rye here. The only time I ever get rye, I order it off of Amazon.
Yeah,
Um, what I know is that the types of flours and what they're called vary by country. For example, in Britain, bread flour is called strong flour, right? So they have sort of different names from us. I generally use just regular all-purpose flour. Hang on.
me too.
Uh, so Rick's got something for me here. White whole wheat flour is a type of whole wheat flour that is made from a different variety of wheat than traditional whole wheat flour. It's often milder in flavor and lighter in color than regular whole wheat flour, but it still contains all parts of the wheat kernel, making it a strong whole wheat option in terms of nutritional content. So there we go. Okay, so Carol, if you're going to use white whole wheat, you're going to want to treat it as if it's a 100% whole wheat. So what we say is if you're going to go much more than 20% of your flour, so 200 grams for a whole wheat, you're probably going to need to increase that water content because the wheat will soak it up. And yes, and watch that proofing time. The whole wheat. Um, sorry, Rick was just showing me stuff in the background here. The whole wheat flour will proof faster and change things for you in that regard. So let's see here. Um, so you both dropped off. I'll try again next week. I think we got it going good now. So Carol, the whole wheat is from King Arthur. Yeah, we can't get King Arthur up here in Canada, but basically what I was just reading from Rick is that it's got about a 13 to 14% protein content. So I'll maybe get Bill to weigh in on what he thinks about this stuff. So Bill, we see a lot in the beginners group about protein contents and using temps to figure out bulk fermentation. Personally, I think it's a little bit more complicated than a beginner really needs. And then even then,
Yeah.
unless you're a scientist, right? So what are your thoughts on all of that, whether strong flours and protein contents, et cetera?
Well, I'm just using the all-purpose flour. It's no name, Canada brand, no name flour, and it's 4%. And then I started looking into doing focaccia and stuff, and I saw that you needed a higher protein percentage. And so I went out and found some 12% protein flour, and I used it for focaccia, and it worked out pretty well. But then I tried to
Right.
use the same flour to make my bread, and it just blew out everywhere, every single time, no matter what I did. So all that, scoring and stuff I do, I can't do it with that high protein flour. So
Right.
I went back to what
Right.
was always working, and I'm still just using regular, no name brand, all purpose, 4% protein flour. And that's my flour right across
Right.
the board.
So I think based on what Bill's saying is that these protein contents certainly can make quite a big difference. So I hope you guys can
Oh,
see
yeah.
this on your screen. This is the post that Bill made in the group not too long ago. When was this post made? In March. And he says, people are always asking him how he gets this beautiful scoring. And one of the first things he says is that he's at a fairly low hydration at 69.4%. And one of the next things that he says is that he retains the moisture that he puts into the bread from the very beginning. So one mistake that Bill would, well, one behavior that Bill would propose is possibly a mistake is throwing a towel over your bowl between stretch and folds because that towel could suck some of the moisture out. And that when I read that, it just really made sense to me, Bill. And so I actually spent the next 2 weeks changing from throwing a towel over my bowl when I stretch and folded to doing all of my stretching and folding in my bulk proofing containers. And it did actually really make a difference for me. So if I just keep on playing the rest of this video that I made of sort of
Yeah.
a thing, a look at this post, right? You can see Bill scoring in his photos here, right? And it's just solid stuff. So what are your tips, Bill, to get scoring that looks like that? Especially, I mean, obviously, first, I think it's important to say your bread won't score like that until your dough is right, right? You have to
Yeah.
master bulk proofing. You've got to get good at mixing your bread and building strength during stretching and folding and getting a good bulk proof on your bread. And
Yeah.
then, getting that cold proofing in order to get the good score. But assuming you have all of those things, then what advice do you have, Bill?
The longer I'm able to not bulk ferment, cold ferment in the fridge, the easier it takes the scoring. So a lot of people say the dough snags on them and stuff like that. And if I go up to 8 hours in the fridge, it's still a bit snaggy. And I can work with it, but it is. And if I go up to 24 hours of cold ferment in the fridge, I can pretty much do anything. I can get
Cool.
away with
Okay.
anything. So it
So what if
makes
you
it,
were in a rush? What are your thoughts on like putting it in the freezer for 45 minutes if you didn't have time to cold proof?
if you don't have time,
Yeah, like
well,
say you needed bread for supper and you were entirely out and mixed early in the morning. And
you
so,
can do
because
that.
cold
You
proofing
can
is optional.
Yeah, you can just. I've made bread with no cold proof whatsoever. I've just done the final shaping and just straight into the oven. But it's going to
Do
be
you,
as soft as it's going to possibly get. You're not going to do much elaborate design into it or anything like that. You can have bread immediately, but you're not
sure,
going to be
sure,
able
but
to
you're not
store
going
all
to
the
get the
crazy
good
stuff.
scoring. Right,
No,
right. Okay.
it's too
Okay,
hard.
good. Yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense. Okay, so one of the keys to scoring for you especially is getting that good
yeah,
coldness on them here. So do you work with einkorn flour? I never do. What I do is I add 20% spelt to my regular mix. So I do 800 grams of just like what Bill said. He's using no name. I'm usually using the Walmart brand bleach all-purpose flour, 800 grams, and I'll do 200 grams of the Bob's Red Mill spelt. I can get that Bob's Red Mill spelt for fairly cheap. It's like $7 for I don't know, I think maybe I get 800 or 900 grams. So I'll get 4 loaves of bread in a bag of spelt. So that gives me, some good nutritional content and also some great flavor. But I've never actually done these einkorn things. Have you, Bill?
Yeah.
There you go. Okay.
Did I lose you?
All right. Yeah, I lost you for 1 second there, but you seem okay now. Seems good.
Yeah.
Seems okay. So einkorn, again, is quite hard to find in Canada, and if you do find it, it's extremely expensive. Um, so here's what I'm always telling beginners, right? Keep it as simple as you can possibly keep it. Start with the basic essential processes, right? And what I think the essentials are to obviously to have an active starter, right? But get that dough mixed just as basic as possible. Dissolve your starter in some water, dump your flour and salt in, mix it up to a shaggy dough, do a few sets of 30-minute rest and stretch and fold, and then let that dough bulk proof until it's either 75% if you're going to cold proof or 100% doubled if you're going to bake it the same day. Pre-shape it, shape it, and then either score it and bake it right away or cold proof it and then score and bake it. Those are the essentials. Everything else is optional, right? Cold proofing is optional. If you've already overproofed, cold proofing is just going to make it worse, right? So get those basic essentials down and then start adding things in. Start adding in cold proofing, start adding in scoring, start adding in these more complicated flours. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts, Bill?
Yeah, I know, absolutely. Like, start at the beginning and make it as easy as you can, and if you want to experiment around from there, yeah, go from there. Get the beginnings down, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. So Bill's post says you started about 14 months ago. Were you just a natural right from the beginning or did you have a bunch of fails?
I had about three right out of the gate because I got a little overzealous with the starter, and I thought it was ready, and it wasn't. So I got about
Right.
three, like really just flat loaves. But
What would
I picked it up. I picked it up pretty quickly.
Carlene's got a question for you specifically, Bill. Can you see that on your screen?
Can you
Carlene
explain
says,
your method of mixing and bulk proofing? So I was mixing it like literally one at a time with a fork, and now I've moved on to a stand mixer. I'm doing a couple at a time. Uh, I don't dissolve the starter. I just chuck it all in there. It's water,
oh,
then starter, then flour, then salt. Mix it all up, and I split it in the containers and three stretch and folds after a half an hour each. And then the bulk proofing is it just hangs out in the bowls with the lid on it for about 5 hours. And I just
your
kind of eyeball it now.
I think your containers are similar to the ones that I reckon. Do you have some there that you could show us that you're
Um,
letting?
um,
Because I'm pretty sure that the containers Bill's talking about are really similar to the ones that we recommend using for bulk proofing. So you can see they're clear. He says he got them from Dollar Tree, like they're just plastic containers. He's off
yeah.
looking for them now. That was a great question, Curly. See if he can find them. I know I've seen it in his post. That's why I asked him. So there you go. So an even simpler mix, right? Toss everything in the bowl, get it mixed up good. He's using a stand mixer now, so that's okay, right? You can use that stand mixer to get your dough to come together. But after that point, you still need to do the stretching and folding with your hands, obviously, right? But there are some people who don't do any stretching and folding with their hand. They get the dough mixed up in the mixer and then they let it sit in the mixer for 30 minutes and mix it around again and let it sit in the mixer for 30 minutes and mix it around again. I actually spoke to a lady early on when I first started sourdough for beginners who only had her right arm, her left arm had been amputated, and she said, "How can I do this?" And we figured it out. We just did some practicing. So she used her stand mixer. Now, I will be fair and say that she had quite a strong stand mixer. I have seen a lot of talk on the group. I'm always scanning Amazon for sales, and if I find a good deal, I try to post it on Facebook. But I have posted the KitchenAid, stand mixer before, and I have heard that the basic KitchenAid stand maker has the potential to hop while you're trying to mix in it. I wonder if Bill can tell us what kind of mixer he's using when he comes back. But I have heard people say that it needs to be a fairly sturdy mixer. There's one person in the group who I talk to all the time who's got the commercial grade KitchenAid that you can get at Costco, I think, and that works quite good. I've actually been looking at a Beaver mixer that will do up to 8 quarts, so I think I could probably do like 4 loaves in there. Did you find it, Bill? Did you find one of
I
those?
don't have one here. No, I
Okay,
took
hang
them
on. I'll
all
go grab
home.
mine. I bet it's the same as yours. Hang on one sec. I'll go grab mine.
Yeah,
Let's see. And then, Bill, what kind of mixer are you using?
it's a KitchenAid. I think on the side it says Professional 5 or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, the pro version. So
And
that's what I've heard. Yeah, is
yeah,
that you kind of, if you're going to go KitchenAid, you kind of need that pro one, like this.
yeah. I wasn't using one this time. I borrowed this from my mother-in-law. She's
Oh,
not getting that
nice.
back easy.
Have you seen that bread proofing bowl? I mean, I'm sure if you're doing 10 loaves a day or whatever it is, it probably won't work. But is this kind of similar to what you're using? Like this or like this? Does that kind of look similar to what you use for bulk proofing? Or like this Glad one? Because what we do in our bulk proofing success video is we recommend that they find a container that's, fairly snug for the dough. So this one's like 8 cups, and I think this one's 1.9 liters. It's probably 8 cups too. This one's 1.89 liters. Yeah, so these containers are both the same, but this one's actually purely straight sided and a little bit taller. And so what I've been doing ever since I read Bill's post is actually getting my bread into this before stretching and folding. And during the 30 minutes rest period, I've been putting this lid on tightly, and it's retaining the moisture in the bread the whole time. I have the
Yeah,
KitchenAid Pro and it handles it fine. Yeah, I think that's what you need. I really think you need the Pro version. I think a normal KitchenAid might do well too, especially if you were just doing a single loaf. So.
yeah. I'm doing a lot of like I'm more commercial now, so
Well, 100 loaves a week, like what that works out to like that's 12 loaves a day, isn't it? Or 15 loaves a day almost.
yeah,
Are you
yeah.
baking 7 days a week?
Most days, yeah. We do like a big pop-up thing on Sundays down here. The store wasn't typically open on Sundays, and I've been opening it myself, and those days are closer to like 30 loaves in one day.
Oh, wow. Wow. And then how are
Yeah.
you selling the other loaves? Is it like on Marketplace, or are you putting them out at the restaurant, or how's that going?
What I've been doing is I know people in like local businesses and stuff like that, and my wife is a teacher. So she teaches at different schools, and so these people are teachers, or there's a concrete company directly across the street from you right now, and they'll order 20 or 25 loaves in one shot. So
Wow,
I just
nice.
whip them all up and I drive them over. So I take them to my wife's high school. She also teaches at the local college. She is in, the school board and stuff like that. And people are buying them off me 20 or 30 or so at a time.
Well, that's really encouraging to hear. I mean, when you've got newbies, right, to know that somebody who's making 100 loaves a week, and not only are they beautiful, right? Like when Bill makes a post in the group, he gets the reach on his post there. Over 100,000 people are looking at the post. He's getting, 500 comments and 75 shares, and the posts are reaching so far outside the group because aesthetically, his loaves look so beautiful with the scoring, and you can see that they've got this good spring. But also, I imagine that if you're selling so much bread consistently, then the interiors of your loaves must be quite wonderful as well. And so to
Oh
hear
yeah.
that you're just keeping such a simple process, you know what I mean? I think that's encouraging to most beginners. And, it encourages me too, because I'm always saying, I'm sure there's a place like doing an auto lease or adding your salt later, you know what I mean? Or using this a la Q method that they use where they use a little cup to proof the dough in, you know what I mean? Like all of those things, they're valid and they probably work great, but I don't necessarily think you need them, right?
No, I don't think you need any of that. I think a lot of people are overcomplicating this thing. This is much, much easier than people think it is. And people are doing like the float test and the poke test and the auto leasing and all this. You don't need any of that. I don't
Yeah,
personally. Like none of it. Auto leasing
right.
that's right out. I'm not doing any of that. Internal temperature, none of that. I'm not doing any of that. None
Right,
of
me
it.
too.
You don't have to. If your
Carlene's got
starter's
a test for
strong,
it.
you don't have to do a float test. And if your bread's proofed long enough, you don't have to do a poke test. It's all going to work.
Right,
And
agreed,
I see a
agreed.
lot of people, they stress out about that kind of stuff, and it's overcomplicated. This thing is much simpler than people, I don't know. I don't think it's as complicated as it. The internal temperature, I don't need it. None of it. Auto leasing, I
I do
can't
like
imagine
using
why
the
anybody
internal.
would want to go through that.
Agreed, agreed. It seems like a lot for me too. I do like using the internal temp on the bread at the end, checking that I'm at 205. But the reason
Yeah,
for that for me is because my stove is not super consistent. My stove is an apartment size, oven that only goes to 450. And my husband and I have
yeah,
used the heat gun on it, and we know it's not maintaining that temperature. So I do find that
yeah,
some days my bread will bake in 45 minutes, and sometimes it takes like an hour. But
yeah.
Carlene wants to know how you're baking. Are you using Dutch ovens or open baking? And how many are you getting done at a time? And we'd love to hear about all
I
that.
have, I own 8 5-quart Dutch ovens. I own Lodge and Lagostina and KitchenAid, but I have 8 5-quart Dutch ovens. Here in the store, I have 3 ovens, so I can do 2 in each one, and each one is a half an hour. So I'm about 12 loaves an hour.
Oh, wow. That's good. Okay. So on a small order day, you could get it done. So are you mixing the dough at home and then bringing it to the store to bake, or what does your normal day
No.
look like?
Uh, it's tricky with the starter and stuff like that. The starter, I make at home. And then I just bring that here and I whip that all together in the store.
So you're
I don't
kind of like
think,
mixing today's dough and baking yesterday's dough tomorrow kind of thing,
yeah.
right?
What I'm trying to do is I'm accumulating Benetton baskets as fast as I can, and I have about 40 of them now. And what I want to do is have them all filled up in the fridge and hanging out. I'm fine to leave the dough in the fridge for like maybe even up to 3 days. And then I would have a couple days of stock. So if I didn't feel like doing something or something like that, I don't have to. Or if I have a big order, somebody wants 30 loaves right off, right out of the gate, I got them lying around. So that's what I'm
Oh,
trying to
good.
do is like accumulate stock.
Good. Have you put any thought into trying to do some open baking so that you could do way more in the oven, or do you think that just Dutch ovens are just so much
I
better?
Yeah, like I said, like it's just working for me. So 12 an hour is not too bad. I have considered looking at open baking, but I haven't tried it or anything like that.
If you were
I'm
gonna
not
open
against
bake,
it. Definitely not against it.
do you think you would end up getting like a baking steel or a pizza stone or something to try and retain some of that heat inside of the oven if you went that route?
Probably. I would have to watch some videos and see what other people are doing because, like I said, I haven't tried it. So that's the way I figured everything out here is just I watch YouTube videos or something like that and see what people are doing and try it out for myself.
Yeah, the next thing on my list to buy is a baking steel. And I'm in particular looking at the 3/8 thickness. Most baking steels that are on Amazon are about a 1/4 inch, but you can find these 3/8 thickness ones. And I've been watching a lot of the girls who do, not girls, goodness gracious, the people on Facebook who have these cottage bakeries. I guess that's technically what you're operating. Yours seems a little bit more commercial, but these people
Yeah.
are doing 40, 60 loaves a week, and they're open baking in their regular ovens. But what they did was get this baking steel to retain the heat to still help with that spring. So next thing on my list is to get a baking steel, because I'm always telling people if you want to open bake, try to get either a baking steel or a pizza oven. But I would like to get one to really start testing it out myself, because I would then be able to go from 2 loaves to 4 loaves and possibly even 8 loaves, right? I could possibly have one on each rack, right? So high on my
Yeah,
list.
you think you can get that many?
Maybe, or maybe 3 per rack, but anything would be
Yeah.
interesting for me. So
'Cause
TS
I know
chili.
Milos are pretty big. I couldn't imagine getting more than four. I don't know. I'd have to try it out, honestly. I've never tried it, so. But Milos are pretty big.
So TS is trying to get just a little healthier than white flour. Maybe not so important with sourdough. You know, it is important. It's always important to be as healthy as you want to be. So I do actually have a video on the YouTube channel in the bread baking playlist. It's 100% whole wheat. So we still use the same essential processes that we always teach, but we're using 100% whole wheat flour. And that video just talks about sort of the things that will come. So absolutely, if you're going to put in a higher wheat content flour into your bread, it is going to increase the health level of the ingredients, right? The sourdough itself with the fermented product inside and the long breaking down process of the gluten, those things themselves are healthy regardless of what flour you use. But adding in a sturdier flour can certainly contribute to health. What we suggest for beginners is working your way up. So start with 100 grams out of your 1,000 grams, and then go to 200 grams and start working your way up. And also make sure you've got those essential processes mastered, so that you're comfortable with increasing the hydration slightly to account for how much it's going to absorb, all of that sort of thing. So definitely good things you can do. And Carly wants to know, does a 6-quart Dutch oven work? It does, absolutely. We recommend that if you're going
Yeah.
to buy a Dutch oven exclusively for sourdough, then go between 4 and 5 quarts. So in order for me to get 2 Dutch ovens in the oven, because it's a small apartment size, I have to have 2 oval Dutch ovens. 2 round, no matter what I do, won't fit in my oven. I've seen a little bit of the inside of Bill's kitchen. I know that you can probably get 2 round ones in there, Bill, I think. But
Yeah,
4 point,
one of my Dutch ovens is 6, and
and what
all
are
the
your
rest are
thoughts?
5. Yeah, I 5 quart. You're good, pretty much right across the board. I think for me, I have a 6, and it's a little bit bigger than I need, and I know that 4 would be smaller than I need. So for me, 5 is hits the nail right on the head. I have
Perfect.
one
Yeah.
6, but I wouldn't want them all to be 6. So
That's what I always say to beginners is I say, look, if you've already got a 6 or a 7 quart Dutch oven, absolutely use it. But if you're going to go
yeah,
buy something specific, then 5 seems to be the standard. What's your actual recipe for like a double loaf recipe, or what is the actual like grams measurements of what you're using?
for my loaf,
Yeah.
a single loaf is 300 grams of water, 125 grams of starter, 450 grams all-purpose flour, 10 grams of salt. So then double is just double all that. 600, 250, 900, 20.
Cool. Okay, so you have a very high starter, not very high, but your water's
Yeah,
kind of
it's up
low, but
there
your
though.
starter's pretty high. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 125 for the recipes that I see everybody doing. 125 does seem to be on the higher end, but again, it's always worked for me. So
I think that starter contributes to hydration, and I find that you can really increase your starter. without causing breakdown in the bread, whereas big increases in water can cause some pretty catastrophic
Yeah.
results. So I'm kind of on the same, like I said, our beginner bread recipe is 100, so it's a double loaf, but let's do a single. So a single loaf of the beginner bread recipe would be only 60 grams of starter, and 340 grams of water. So you're kind of getting close. Like your starter and water added together end up being 420 grams altogether, and mine ends
Yeah.
up being 460 plus 340, right? So from a hydration perspective, they're not that far off, but mine's more water, less starter. And then once we
Yeah.
get into the level 2 hydration, we start coming towards where you're going, which is we increase that starter up to 100 grams, and the water up to 350. So I think, and this is, people are always asking, what's the perfect recipe? The reality is that the perfect recipe is the one that works for you. And there's all kinds of reasons to adjust recipes, right? Some people who want a much lower sour flavor, for example, might not want to use quite as much starter, right? People
Yeah.
who want to be able to proof their dough on the counter overnight, even though I never recommend it, might want to use a very small amount of starter. So,
Yeah. I don't recommend that either.
yeah, me too. I'm totally, let's see what
Oh,
Rick
How
says.
much
hey, get
starter
away
do you
from
keep
you.
on
You know,
hand
you wake
usually,
up in the
Bill?
morning
And
and it's just burst all over the counter. I don't know. I need more
Yeah,
control than that.
yeah, I like to watch it. I like to watch it. So we got a video question here from Rick. Let's see what he's saying.
um, what's the maintenance process like with that, and where do you keep it, and what do you keep it in, etc.?
Let me just play that again. Hang on, Bill. I think he's asking you a question. Play again.
How much starter do you keep on hand usually, Bill? And um, what's the maintenance process like with that, and where do you keep it, and what do you keep it in, etc.?
Oh, we lost him. We lost you, Bill. I don't know if you could get back in. That was actually a great question. I would love to know how much starter Bill's keeping on hand. Goodness gracious, it must be a lot. If he is mixing 10 loaves a day at 120 grams of starter, that would be 1,200 grams of starter that he's using every day, right? So 600 grams of flour and 600 grams of water. I hope Bill can get back in here, but if he doesn't, that's okay. Um, so 12 loaves a day, and he's doing 100. There you are, Bill. Okay, great. I'm glad
Ah,
you're back. Did you see that question from Rick? Because it
no.
was a good one. Okay, so Rick wanted to have you. I was just sitting here trying to do the math. Rick wants to know about your starter, and I'm sure everyone watching does. So, what kind of jar are you using? You know what I mean? How big is your starter? What's your feeding? What do you do? Tell us about what it takes to run your business. What you have to do with your
The
starter.
starter, oh, so I have 8 jars going. It's pretty much like your standard mason jar size, the same one that you buy spaghetti sauce in the grocery store.
Okay,
And I'm using that pretty much down to nothing every single day. And then when I replenish it, it's just 100 grams of water, 100 grams starter, flour
great.
rather. Mix it up,
Oh
and that's
wow.
it. That's it. So it's
So they've
essentially
got
like
this.
like a spaghetti sauce size jar, your mason jar,
Yeah, yeah,
one
right.
of
Okay,
those.
so
And then I just dump that thing out when I'm making bread. I dump it into the bowl until it won't dump anymore. Like it is pretty much empty.
cool.
And then at the bottom, you maybe get, half an inch or 3/4 of an inch left at the bottom. And that's it. 100 grams water, 100 grams flour.
So that very tiny amount that you've left behind is enough to revive that new 100 grams flour, 100 grams of water.
Every day times 8 jars.
Amazing. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So, and it's fun. I've
Yeah.
done a video on this before where you can use, like, I usually always leave behind quite a bit just because I'm afraid. But there have been times where I've used like almost all of it and done that feed. It's interesting. So I do the same thing. Instead of having a giant starter jar, I'm at the point now where on my biggest baking day, I'll use 400, maybe 500 grams of starter. So
Yeah.
I'm just running 2 jars now. You know what I mean? And just, and
Yeah.
if I were to start to grow, I think I would also be like you. You see people out there with these massive jars. Have
Yeah.
you ever considered doing
Yeah.
that?
No. No.
And why wouldn't you? What do you think?
Well, I have my cooler thing that I made. I don't know if you've ever bumped into that. so it won't fit in
Oh,
there for one thing. So what I've done is I have like a cooler, your standard cooler. I've got a light fixed into the center of it, and then the cord
okay.
runs out. There's a little tab to let water or melted ice cubes run out. I ran the cord through there. There's a thermostat in the top corner, and then there's a dial outside the cooler. So I can turn that thing up to like 1/10 of any degree I want. I can make 80.1. I can make 80.2. I can make 80.3. I can make it anything I want. So when I mix up my 8 jars and I put them in there and I plug that thing in, the starter is ready to go in 2 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, there's
Have
no
you
six
posted this in
hours
the
or
group
do it.
before?
I don't have to do it the night before. I'll send you pictures of that.
I would like
But
it.
that,
Okay, I've got another question from Rick here. Let's play it. Let's see, because I'm sure it's probably for you, Bill. Let's see what he has to say.
So I don't know what happened, but when you popped out and came back in now, your picture is perfectly clear. Like your service is excellent. Like whatever, somebody fixed the antenna.
you're not going?
Did you hear him okay there, Bill?
No. No, what do you say?
Oh, he said, so you went out for a second and then came back in a little bit,
Yeah.
and now you're perfect. So before you were kind of like, you were
I know
kind
you,
of,
you weren't, your video was stopped dead for like pretty much the whole time.
yeah, yeah, and now you
But
look
now it's
great.
working
So
fine.
yeah, so we'll get better at this as time goes on. So Bill, I started using StarCam about, this is probably week 4 or 5 that we've been using it, and we like this idea that people have this ability to upload these videos to us.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to just keep doing this, right? Make it, and get the get used to working with this thing. So it's kind of a neat thing. I'd
Yeah.
love to see pictures of this cooler thing that you have. So basically what you're saying is the thermostat shuts it off once it gets to a certain
Yeah.
heat.
Yeah. So I typically set it around 80 degrees. And like that light bulb only comes on for maybe 15 seconds. And then once every 20 minutes or so.
Oh,
So the light
wow. So
bulb
how
isn't
did
on
you wire
constantly.
that?
Hey,
How did you figure out how to wire that?
I'm so smart.
Hang on. I shut it
Yeah.
off because it wasn't working good, Rick. Okay, but I shut it off before because it wasn't working good. But I shut it off a long time ago. It's been off the whole time. Rick just came and turned my Wi-Fi on. I
Oh,
uh, I was getting so frustrated with it that I switched over from Wi-Fi to my phone data, but he just came and told me that it's better with my Wi-Fi. So, all right. Well, we're getting close to 8 o'clock here. If anybody else has any questions, get them uploaded. I'm just going to give Bill a chance to tell us whatever little tips or tricks he thinks are best for beginners to focus on for a few minutes here. And Bill, if any questions come in, I'll stop you. So viewers, get those in, and then Bill, we'll just let you talk for the next few minutes here and tell us what you think might be helpful.
uh, definitely those plastic bowls. I don't think that putting a tea towel over top of it is a very good idea, like I've said many times. I think that really draws out the moisture. And I think that's also the reason why when people put the white flour on and then they bake and then it disappears and it's all gone. Because either it's like it makes the dough leathery or something like that and it won't hold it. Or maybe
So
it's
you think
too
the
wet and it
moisture on the
draws it
dough?
in. I no, I
Mm,
never. Because that makes it like clumpy and at the end, like after it's baked, it looks like it's all cracked. So I don't.
right.
People do that. You can spritz the top of the dough with water and not put any flour, and you get like those blisters and stuff. So if you want the blisters, that's okay. But if you're gonna do the white flour, I wouldn't. I wouldn't put anything on it. Just straight up white flour.
What kind of flour are you using?
Um.
Oh yeah, the Clubhouse rice flour. I
That's
can
it.
find that sometimes at Walmart, and then sometimes it disappears forever. Um,
It's in my local grocery store, but this big bag you can get it on Amazon.
oh, cool. Okay,
So
good.
every
Well,
once in a while, I get it on Amazon. When it goes to my local grocery store, they get like 6 little bags at a time, and then they just go so fast. And typically, when I
yeah.
see it, like, I grab 4 of them. So, but in a pinch, I just grab them on Amazon. It's no problem.
Have you thought about making your own at any point? Have you seen those videos where people just take rice and grind it themselves?
No, I haven't. I have seen that. They got those cool little mills, the little wooden ones at the little. That's pretty neat, but I don't have the time for that kind of stuff here.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah, you
have
got to
seen the
keep it moving.
wholesale store where I buy everything is actually like 300 feet from where I'm sitting right now. I'm in sort of an industrial section of town. So the wholesale store is right around the corner, and they have rice flour in, I would say, it's got to be about an 8 kilo bag. Like, it is
Oh, wow.
huge. I don't know if it's any good or not, but it's also cheap as anything. Like, you wouldn't
Oh,
believe it.
wow.
I think it's like $10. So I might buy one just to try it out. If it works, that's awesome because that is a lot of rice flour for almost nothing.
Yeah, that's really good. I do find the rice flour is inexpensive when you can find it. It's just difficult. I go into Peterborough for all of my grocery shopping. I try to do as much as I can at Walmart. Um, and then we also have a Foodland here, which Foodland's a little bit more expensive, but they're usually privately owned, locally owned.
Yeah,
So when we don't want to go all the way into town because we're outside town in the little suburbs outside Peterborough,
yeah.
we go to Foodland. But for whatever reason, they're really hard to find. Carlene has a question for us here. Let's put it up. Tell us about your Bannetons. Are they circular? Are they long? How big are they?
Um, they are. This is actually one of the bigger ones.
Oh,
I'd
nice.
say it's like a nine inch, but I think I use typically the 8.5 by 3.5, something like that.
Okay. Where are you
And
buying them?
then
Just
I
off
have
Amazon?
the Batard, the oval ones as well. But I typically use those for cinnamon raisin.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. 'Cause-
So
yeah.
are you just getting those from Amazon or are you buying them from like a wholesale place or?
No, Amazon. They're pretty cheap if you shop around, especially right now. There's two for $18 or something like that, which is with the liners, which is really cheap.
Will you send me a link to that and then I'll get it posted up in the
Absolutely.
group maybe?
Yeah,
That'd
for
be good.
sure.
Text that to me and then I'll post it so that people can find it. And so Carlene, just watch. I'll post the ones that he's been looking at for you in the group so that you
Yeah.
can take a look at them.
I believe
We've
that's
got a video.
it's
How
8.5 diameter. I think it's 8.5 inches. This one's a bigger one. This one's 9 inches, but
And
same deal.
you're leaving the liner in and putting the bread on top of the liner, right?
Yeah.
So you're just
Yeah.
flouring the liner. And are you
Yeah.
washing those often or what happens
Yeah.
after you use them?
Well, you can just I just wipe out the loose flour, but after a few times, I'll take them home and we wash them, like just straight in the washing machine. We're we're on the lake there, so we can't use any harsh detergents. So everything we have is like a really mild laundry soap and stuff like that. So I just wash it
Right.
with this really mild laundry soap, and that's it. They don't come out perfumey or anything like that.
Right. I'm gonna see. I don't know if you can see these videos, Bill. Rick's got one here. Tell me if you can see this. Hang on.
how important do you think the level of rise in your starter is? Like, you see people doing these recipes, which I don't know. Like, to me, I think they might be crazy, but with the amount of baking you're doing, do you have all of your starters are really big? Like, are they much more than double in the morning, or
Oh
what's
yeah,
that look like?
yeah. They are probably they got to be about 5 times. Like from what I mix it at, like I said, it's almost down to nothing, and then it's 100 grams of water, 100 grams of starter. So you may be looking at about an inch and a half worth of material. And when I use it, it's right to the top. So I've got to be at least 5 times, and
Yeah,
that's it.
you're going
I'm just
way
trying
under
to
the
catch
heat.
it before it spills out, and then I got to clean that cooler yet again because it
Yeah,
is
so
not
that's
fun. I've cleaned that cooler out 100 times, and it sucks. So I'm trying
you
to
need
catch it.
bigger jars. You need a
Well,
little bit more
yeah,
room.
I just need to catch it. But sometimes I'll make it and I intend to be home and then I get called out for whatever. I got to go somewhere. And then I come home and like all 8 jars will just blown right out. And I put beeswax paper on top for a lid with an elastic band and it just blows those right off.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. I
So
don't
you're
use
not
the
using a
lids
sealed
anymore.
lid.
No, I was finding a long time ago that I was getting like rust spots on the side of the jars. And that's, it's from using the lids over and over and over and over and over. And so I decided to just chuck them all. I don't use any metal on my starter lids or anything. It's just beeswax paper. I cut into like a square like that, put it on
Oh,
top, and then
cool.
just fasten it down with an elastic band.
So I'll show you mine. I'll show you mine. I started with, there's a lady in our neighborhood who makes the most amazing pickles, and we can buy them off four pickles for $2, but her pickles come in these, and
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
plastic lid. And these are 750 mils, right? So I've got two. So mine have peaked already and are starting to fall again.
Yeah.
What I do is I feed them as soon as I'm done mixing, let them peak. So mine will actually come pretty close to here, right? And then I stick them in the fridge and they slowly fall in the fridge, but I usually end up using them within 2 days. So I use them straight out of the fridge. But I thought you might like these. You can kind of rescue these from the deli, and they're probably about the same size as the spaghetti jars. And
Yeah.
what I ended up doing is I ended up spending the $11 on Amazon and getting a 20 pack because I share them all the time, right? So whenever I want to
Yeah.
give some, I just scoop it into one of these for someone and show
Yeah.
them how to do it. So,
Well,
because
I'm
I
I'm
agree
kind
that.
of heating mine with my light bulb, so I don't want to heat plastic very much.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, okay, so
Yeah.
your thing, so yours with the beeswax, it is technically beeswax is, I guess, technically a little bit breathable, but your starters are always in that cooler, so
Yeah.
they're still kind of cut off from the air. So it is as if
Yeah.
you're using a lid. It's just one lid for all of your starters.
Yeah, 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 I guess it is kind of like a lid, but it is. It's heated in there. It's 80 degrees, and I don't really want to heat plastic up at all.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So what size loaves are you making in grams? I was trying to do that math earlier. What's the total?
885, I think it is.
Have you ever weighed one after
300,
you make?
450, no, 425,
It's
825,
725.
875, and 10 grams, 885.
885. Have you ever weighed one after to see how much you lose?
No, I could do it right now.
Because we did one the other day. So mine are 500 plus 350 is 850 plus 100 is 950. So mine are 960, my loaves. And I'm not having any issue whatsoever making 960-gram loaves in my 4.3 quart ovals, but I'm doing all of mine batard shaped almost all the time. And Rick and I measured a 960-gram loaf the other day, and it came in at 870.
I've never thought of that before. I'll
But it
even
makes
open
sense,
them.
right? You lose that steam in the oven.
Mm.
Beautiful. Yo, I should have made you do that at the beginning, not made you. I should have asked you to. Look at Bill's loaves. They're beautiful. They're so beautiful. Check that out. Oh, Carlene uploaded us a video. It's beautiful. I'll play
That's
this video,
good.
Bill, while you measure that. Hang on, let's see what Carlene says. Loaves. Yeah, I know. I thought that was going to be a video, Carlene. So his are 885. Mine are 960. Usually anywhere between 850 and 1,000 grams is a fairly standard size loaf. And in that range of standard size loaves, that's where we're saying between 4 to 5 quarts for a Dutch oven is a good size. So you're doing pretty good there. You're fine at 6 quarts. There's nothing wrong with using 6 quarts. What's it saying?
787 and 800. It's down 85 to 100 grams. I never thought of
Interesting,
that.
hey?
Yeah.
Yeah, Rick made me do it the other day. So ours are 960, and after baking, the one I measured was 870. So I lost like 90 grams. So that's actually a good. So here's what I know. You have to have a certain amount of moisture escape in order for the bread to spring, right?
Yeah.
So if your bread weighs, around 75 to 100 grams less after it's baked, then you did a good job. And I kind of have this theory, and I'm going to try it soon just to see. But I feel like if I underproof a loaf significantly or badly overproof it, so both sides it doesn't spring, I bet you it stays the same weight because it doesn't ever spring, right? You never
Yeah.
lose that.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. If some of it you lose it in steam, or you know, some of the water's got to disappear. It has to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
never
Well,
thought
for
to.
our
I never thought to measure them before.
he just measured his, Rick. Did you see that? And his was between 70 and 100 grams less after baking. Yeah. So, okay. All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here. I'm sorry that we had technical difficulties at the beginning. For those who were watching on YouTube, we lost that stream just a few minutes in. But I'm glad you're all here. I'm glad you guys answered questions. Bill, thank you so much.
No problem.
Definitely send me pictures of your proofing box and the link to those Bannetons.
Yeah.
Carlene, I'll make sure I get that link to you so that you can see what kind of Bannetons he's working on. I'll post it in the group too. And hopefully we'll have you on again soon, Bill.
Sure. Absolutely. Anytime.
Okay. Talk to you all later. Bye for
Yeah.
now.
Thanks a lot.